This is BS with Joe. News, culture, and crazy. One blunt conversation at a time. Every few years, usually right after a big election, you start hearing it again. Abolish the Electoral College. The crowd that just lost says the system's broken, unfair, outdated. But here's the funny part. It's always loudest right after the loss. Exactly. And look, I get the emotion. It feels wrong when your side wins the popular vote but loses the presidency. It feels like the scoreboard cheated you. But that's not corruption. It's design. The Electoral College exists so that the United States stay united.
Still, if you live in California or Alabama, places that always swing the same way, it doesn't feel like your vote disappears. That's frustration is real.
It is, but tearing down the system isn't the fix. Understanding it is. The Electoral College isn't about counting heads. It's about balancing voices. It keeps 5 cities from ruling 50 states.
You know what's wild? This isn't just activists or college professors talking anymore. They're sitting members of Congress right now. We've publicly said the Electoral College has to go.
Yeah, and that's what makes this moment different. We're not debating a theory anymore. It's policy. Bills have already been introduced to replace with a national popular vote or join the National Popular Vote Compact. That compact basically tells states to ignore their own voters and give all their electors to whoever wins the national total.
Which means a state like Wyoming or Maine could end up awarding its votes based on how people in California or New York voted. That's not reform, that's surrender.
Exactly. And the fact that members of Congress are cheering that on tells you something deeper. They're comfortable with centralization. They benefit from it because a national popular vote makes every campaign a national campaign where big donors and big media call the shots.
So even the fight to modernize the system ends up being out of control.
Well, it's about control, always.
Yeah, it's about control.
The packaging changes, but the goal stays the same. Move power up the ladder, away from states and into the hands of the few. Look, when the founders designed the presidency, they didn't want a straight popular vote. They'd just fought a war to free themselves from the rule of distant majorities. They wanted a republic, not a mob.
So the idea was that the states, not just the people, elect the president. The popular vote inside each state tells the state how to cast its electors.
Exactly. So you have 50 different conversations all happening at once. Each state deciding how it wants to be represented in the federal system. That's the balance that keeps Iowa farmers, Arizona ranchers, and New York teachers all in the same nation.
Critics say the balance is outdated. Through that, travel, media, and the internet make geography meaningless. Why not just let the national majority pick?
Because majority rule without limits turns into majority tyranny. The same reason we have 2 senators per state. Even though populations differ, it forces cooperation. It slows down extremism. And that brings us to the warning from history, 1913. The year that states gave up the power to choose senators by passing the 17th Amendment.
The progressive era, right? They said direct election would clean up corruption.
Before 1913, senators were appointed by state legislatures. That meant state governments had a literal seat in Washington. They could hold the federal government accountable. Then the reformers came along and said, let the people choose directly. Sound familiar?
Yeah. Pretty much the same slogan people use now about the presidency.
Exactly. And what happened? Corruption didn't vanish. It went national. Instead of bribing a few local legislators, the powerful just bought national campaigns. The Senate stopped representing the states and started representing donors.
So you're saying abolish the Electoral College would finish what 1913 started?
That's right. The same crowd that promised more democracy ended up giving us more centralization, more corporate money, and less accountability. If we scrap the Electoral College, the last thread of state influence in federal power is gone. Then Washington answers to nobody but itself.
Let's talk about what that actually looks like. Because some people hear this and think, so what? At least someone votes would finally count the same.
Sure.
Everyone's vote would count the same.
On paper. But here's what would really happen. Presidential campaigns would collapse into about 6 population zones: California, Texas, Florida, New York, Illinois, maybe Pennsylvania. Everything in between, flyover country, literally ignored.
Yeah, you're saying candidates would only choose big city voters.
Exactly. They'd spend all their time in LA, Chicago, Houston, Miami. Rural states would become spectators. And if you think people feel alienated now, just wait until nobody ever visits their town again.
That would rip the cultural fabric even wider. City versus country, coast versus heartland.
Yep. And once that happens, the idea of United States starts breaking down. Because unity isn't about uniformity, it's about representation. The Electoral College forces presidents to build coalitions across different kinds of Americans. Without it, you don't need coalitions. You just need turnout in your strongest cities.
Let's play devil advocate for a second. Critics say the Electoral College gives too much power to swing states like Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Arizona, while safe states get ignored. Isn't that still unfair?
It sounds unfair until you realize swing states change. They move with population, culture, and issues. California was Republican for decades. Texas used to be blue. That fluidity is proof that the system adapts. A pure popular vote never adapts. It freezes power in the biggest metros forever.
And the other argument that the Electoral College distanced government from the people. That wouldn't be closer to the truth, democracy without it.
Well, that's not distance, that's design. The founders wanted a layer of separation to protect the people from their own worst impulses. They built filters, local, state, federal. Each one checks the others. Take those filters away and emotion rules reason.
Yep. And that's when we started rewriting the Constitution out of anger.
Exactly. See, that's what I call constitutional grief. Changing the rules because you didn't like the outcome. It's human, but it's dangerous. We did it in 1913, and we're still paying for it. Look, if you zoom out, there's a pattern. Every time America tries to make the system more democratic, we end up making it more centralized. 1913 gave us income tax, the Federal Reserve, and direct election senators, all in 1 year. Each one sold as a reform. Each one expanded Washington's reach. Every federal program that overrides state law, every bloated agency budget, every time your paycheck shrinks while DC grows, that's the ghost of 1913 still collecting rent. And now they want to invite that ghost back in by killing the Electoral College.
So what's the takeaway for people listening right now? Why should the average voter care?
Because this isn't about Democrats or Republicans. It's about the structure that protects everyone from who's ever in power next. The Electoral College forces presidents to care about states as partners, not just populations as data points. If we lose that, elections stop being national conversations and become national takeovers.
And history shows once centralized power, you don't get it back.
Exactly. We already gave up the Senate once. If we surrender the Electoral College, we'll have erased the states from the equation completely. At that point, it's not the United States anymore. It's just America Incorporated. Freedom isn't efficient, and the Constitution wasn't built for convenience. It was built for endurance.
Structure is freedom. Lose the structure, lose the republic.
Exactly. 1913 taught us that. Let's not fail the same lesson twice.
Right. You could look at modern examples of Canada. Ontario kind of rules Alberta.
We do.
Yeah, Alberta doesn't really have any say. Ontario has all the power.
Because they're voting based on population. They didn't have the system that we do with the Electoral College.
That's an example you could look at today.